we were right in thinking that Red Bull are in a spot of bother, right? Because they have felt this pressure to do something.
I think Lando has speed, doesn't he? Like he's been embedded at McLaren for such a long time that the foibles of that car are kind of second nature to him. He can drive around issues even if it's not completely what he likes, but he can be fast in that car, faster than Oscar, um, the majority of the time. But it's the yeah, I agree with you. He is still learning. McLaren are still learning. Benedetto Vigna, the CEO of Ferrari, coming out and saying that, and this is reported by Andrew Benson. This is not a direct quote. That the salary that Adrian Newey demands is too high for Ferrari. But what I found even more interesting was him saying that he would uproot the system, that he would cause major problems within, or he would try and change the entire system and have too much control within Ferrari. Everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tired F1 Pod. This time, Amar is back. Amar, how the heck are you?
I am back and better than ever.
Oh, yeah. And we are about to head back into a Grand Prix weekend. I can't believe how much having one weekend off has bored me. I need some action.
It has felt like about a year or so until when Silverstone happened. It has felt that long for whatever reason.
But I have to say, given the result of Silverstone, I don't think I've been this excited for a Hungarian Grand Prix since the last Hungarian Grand Prix when Lewis was on pole. I'm so happy.
That's
All
right.
right. No bias here, though, race fans. Um, there's been some news, a few bits and pieces to get our teeth into. And Amara, I definitely want to get your views on the stuff that I talked about in the last video that we did about Ferrari potentially squandering their chances
Oof.
with Adrian Newey. But let's start at the top. Red Bull turned up to the Hungaroring with a brand new aero concept. Gone are the turrets, in are the water slides. Have you had a look?
I
What do you
have.
think?
I've briefly looked at it, and I don't. I mean, I can't get into the technicalities of it. I'm not smart enough as you are to tell me what all of it means.
No,
However,
I'm not smart enough.
however, I think that this again philosophically is very interesting to me. Like I'm fascinated by the idea of Newey's departure at the point in time where it did, and they being Red Bull, seem to be moving away from I suppose the direction that he would want to take with the car. I mean, there's been a few leaks here and there about them not wanting to listen to him, then sort of phasing him out. I'm not sure if all of that is just purely conjecture or, sort of a bad divorce that usually happens and stuff is said and it's half of it is true if that. But it does seem like they're taking another direction. What it does say to me, though, is that we were right in thinking that Red Bull are in a spot of bother, right? Because they have felt this pressure to do something. Now, it could be genius. It could work out really well, and they might come out and dominate, especially with Max. I know Checo's not getting all of the updates, but Max certainly can make anything work. He can be magical with anything. So, but I'm just fascinated by the idea of they have felt the pressure to do something.
Right. Well, Max has said that if this concept doesn't work, if this upgrade doesn't work, then they're going to be in for a really difficult season, aren't they? And that totally makes sense to me. They're going to run into trouble in the constructors, and if nothing else, if this update doesn't help Checo come back up towards Max's level roughly, then yeah, they're really going to struggle. Unless they pull the trigger and after the summer break, cut their losses and get somebody new into that second seat. Um, I guess that's the second order of business. Just my quick take on the upgrade. It all seems like the comments that have come out, the stuff that I've seen on social media has all been about the overbody aero. But the story of the season so far has been that McLaren and Mercedes have been improving their mechanical platform. They've been making it more compliant. And the theory goes that if you can nail your mechanical platform, then you can add more aero, and that aero will give you the benefits that you're seeing in the sim. But there are no shortcuts, as Ferrari have clearly found out. that if you put a big upgrade on your car without sorting out the mechanical platform, then you'll see a whole bunch of extra downforce in the sim, which is what Fred Vasseur said. We saw 100 points of downforce in the sim, but all you'll get on the track is bouncing. So I'm much more interested to see if Red Bull have sorted out their actual flaw, which is the problem that they have over curbs, i.e., the lateral stiffness of the suspension is too stiff. Have they sorted that out? Because if they have, then maybe we're in for a bit more of a boring season as we were at the beginning of the season. And Hungaroring, I think, would be a good place to find out. It's that kind of track, isn't it?
No, I absolutely agree with you. I think this is going to be a pivotal race in terms of where the rest of the season pans out, and I'll be more curious than as I'm sure the rest of us will be about how Red Bull actually do, because that will tell a lot of stories, right? I will say though that they've probably put themselves in a spot of bother with the Checo Perez stuff, which we can talk about as well. But um, if they nail this upgrade, then they'll be fine. If not, they're going to be in big trouble.
Right. I mean, even Checo is sort of saying this is a crunch race for him, isn't it? Because he's going to get the upgraded floor, although he doesn't get the full upgrade package that Max is getting this weekend. So again, that for me is a departure from what Red Bull normally do. They're normally so well oiled that they have parts for both cars that either they don't have enough or they're trying to back to back both versions of the RB20. So it'll be interesting to see what actually gets raced on Saturday and Sunday versus what we see in practice on Friday.
Well, this is what makes practice intriguing too, right? This is probably one of those practices that we're all going to want to watch a little bit more closely than we have pretty much all season. So it does make it for an exciting race. We're square on at the halfway point of the season too, right? So lots to show for, lots to see, and Mercedes has traditionally had great success here too. So you'd expect that coming off the high of the last two wins, that they would be in the mix. Obviously, McLaren are right there too, and then Ferrari will be the big wild card there to see if they actually show up with anything or it's a complete dud.
Good segue. Let's talk about Mercedes. So in terms of the chasing pack, what do you make of Mercedes and their chances around the Hungaroring this year?
Yeah, I don't. I think for me, it's a toss-up between Mercedes and McLaren, right? At the moment, I'm going to keep Ferrari out of it, although there is word that they're probably going to fix a few things. It's still sort of TBD, but I think that Mercedes have cracked the code. It definitely seems like it. You can hear it in their body language. The drivers, Toto, James Allison, everyone's going to say that. So I'm very optimistic. I'm frankly very surprised that they've gotten here this fast, right? So it was probably one of those aha moments that they've had. So I would rank their chances to be really high because they've traditionally had really great success here, even in their down years, right? Last year, Lewis got pole too, correct? Although it lasted for, I think, about two corners or maybe one corner. I can't remember exactly. Probably,
Yeah,
he
yeah, and the
was at
McLarens
first
were
one,
immediately
probably,
ahead.
yeah. Right. So I think it's intriguing. And then always the race always throws something new up as well. So you never quite know exactly what to get there too. But I'd rate their chances pretty high.
Right. So history's on their side, isn't it? In both editions of the Hungarian Grand Prix since the new rules came out, and Mercedes has been on pole. George in 2022 and Lewis last season. Neither of them were ultimately able to convert those. But you're right. I think we're seeing a different flavor of Mercedes this season. James Allison at the beginning of the season, before we started out, he talked about this whole. I mean, I keep coming back to the mechanical versus aero platform because it's super important. Like I'm no
You're not
aerodynamicist. I'm
talking
not
about
even gonna.
duvet or anything over here. No, no, the duvet
I
cover.
love that duvet. Yeah, the duvet. I forgot about the duvet. We'll come back to that too. But but he talked about the fact that in the previous rules era, the mechanical platform was basically just you talk to the mechanical guys and just said, look, make it work because the aero the aero bods were king. They just found downforce and whacked it on. And the more downforce you could find, the quicker your car went. And the mechanical guys just had to make that extra load work. Now they're finding that because the cars have to be super low, that if they don't have a good mechanical platform, then they can't add the aero that they want to add. And that was that I think was the trigger moment that James Allison sort of talked about at the beginning of the season. And again later in the season, he did that interview with Beyond the Grid, and he talked about, when Tom Clarkson asked, did you feel like it was a eureka moment when you discovered this? He said no. It was just like oh my God, how could we have been so dumb moment? Why have we not realized this earlier? But it seems like they have realized it, and they're now reaping the benefits. And over the course of all of the seasons that they have won championships, Mercedes have been brilliant at upgrading their car and developing it over the course of a season. It just seems like that's what they're doing right now.
So
Go
you
on.
were telling me that 2022 could have been just as exciting as 2021? Like if they had figured this out maybe a season earlier, like you recognize the gravity of that, and you may not have Lewis Hamilton moving to Ferrari, you may not have a lot of different things. I mean, potentially has an eighth championship, or at least he's fighting for it, right?
Yep.
Who knows, maybe
Yep.
he retires, changes the whole drivers market. So you're telling me that, and this is to quote him directly, how could they be so stupid? Is this going to be, I mean, what, think about it, how historical that moment will be. Like we should capture that and frame it, right? Because if that changed the complexion of everything for the last 2 years, I don't know.
Wow. If buts and maybes and Max's parents, the score here. Um, in terms of driver performances, what do you reckon?
Oh, I think you have to go with the hot hand, no? Lewis has had, although I don't know. I mean, he's not your qualifying stud, so I'm not sure that you'll get him. I mean, he has qualified really well here. I mean, last year being the example of it, right? I don't know. I mean, I genuinely feel like everything is a bit of a toss-up, right? I think it just depends on session to session. If the weather comes into play, track temperature, I think it could be any of those top five drivers, right? That could be in the mix, and I'll throw the Ferrari duo in the mix as well. Plus those two, so the top five plus the two Ferrari drivers could also be there. I couldn't tell you one way or another how it's going to go.
Yeah, I think in terms of his head to head with George, I'm not entirely sure that I can absolutely say that he's going to come out on top in qualifying. But the more you heard about what happened in Silverstone, Lewis was talking about before qualifying, he raised the ride height a little bit on his car, maybe didn't get the maximum downforce out of it because he was setting it up for the race. So if that is what he aims to do, then he may not get pole, he may not qualify ahead of George, but he does qualify brilliantly around here. He is excellent around this track. He won it in his first season in Formula One. He won it. It was the only race he won when he first moved to Mercedes in 2013. So he always goes well around here, just as he does around Silverstone, and we saw how that ended. So um, could we potentially be on for three Mercedes wins back to back? Could we be potentially on for a back to back Lewis win? Who the hell
No.
knows? But I am looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun. All right, let's pivot to McLaren. Lando versus Oscar.
Ooh.
Lando versus Max.
Uh,
What's the
I
next chapter?
I really feel bad for Oscar. Like he's had at least a few chances to be in the driver's seat to win, right? And of course, I think there's a lot that's been analyzed about Silverstone and everything, and I don't want to rehash everything there, but um, I feel really good about his chances. I'm thinking if it's not the two Mercedes drivers, I could see Oscar being on pole too. I really could. He hasn't been as strong as Lando in qualifying, right? But I can see it happen. I think he's due for one of those, right? Because he's the only driver in this competitive set of drivers, right, that has not won a race yet. So I think we're due for at least a good qualifying. I reckon he beats Lando.
Ooh, big call. But I mean, I agree with you. I think I think in terms, look, he's definitely, I think, the most unlucky driver in the top six right now, right? Like, had the luck fallen his way on a few different occasions, I'm thinking Imola, I'm thinking Silverstone, and by luck in Silverstone, I mean McLaren strategists. Then things could have been very different. You watch him across this season, he's been very, very calm. Um, he gets that penalty in Austria. Yeah, again, another
That
instance
could have
of a
been his
race
win.
that could have been his. He gets that penalty in qualifying, and there's no like stomping around, um, swearing or like looking down. It's just, yeah, this happened. It's not right. I should be higher up the grid. It's okay. We'll carry on. And he makes very, very few major errors in battle. He's been very, very good. You talked about we had a long conversation about Carlos and Oscar in Miami, but actually Oscar knew the rules. He knew what he could get away with. This is the first time he's really had a car where he's able to battle wheel to wheel in Formula One. And he put the shade on a guy that really should have come out on top, and that seems to be a recurring theme. Like, he's mature beyond his age, he uses his head, he makes the right calls under pressure, even when his team isn't necessarily making those right calls. Doesn't turn around and blame the team, he just sort of goes, okay, carry on. Yeah, I agree. I think he's very good, and it is, I think, in stark contrast with the guy on the other side of the garage, who, as you said, is very fast. But let's talk about Lando a little bit. Like, what's Lando up to, in terms of his journey through the course of the season? What can he do in Hungary if the McLaren is up for it?
Well, I think so. The Lando story, the Oscar story, is also the McLaren story. I don't think you can separate these three entities from each other, right? Because look, I argued in the last race review that they're still learning to win, and I wasn't the only one. Oscar said the same thing. Lando kind of alluded to it earlier in the week as well. This is a steep learning curve for a team that has not been in the mix for a while. And Lando has had how many races before he won his first one, right? I know he had been unlucky in Sochi. Was it 21 or 22? I can't. 20. Was it 20?
21, 21.
21. That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I don't think they anticipated to be this close to Max this year. I think everyone sort of thought that this would be the year where Max would still run away with the title, and then 25 would come through. And so I think that Lando is sort of arriving at the scene of a pure battle with Max on merit, and he's having to learn in real time. I think that this would have been one of those stepping stone years, and he sort of missed those one or two steps. That's what you're seeing there. Oh, by the way, I don't want to piggyback on Oscar too, right? Because Oscar is playing with a little bit of house money, right? The expectation isn't for him to be the team leader, whereas Lando has that pressure, and you can tell. You can tell by body language, you can tell by how the race goes. So I think that there's still a little bit of a way to go. Look, we argued about this the last time around too, right? I believe that Max has only two drivers on the grid right now that I think he has the respect of and can compete with wheel to wheel. It's Lewis and Charles. So I don't put Lando in that category at all. Not yet. But we'll see. We'll see. It's a not yet. It's not a no. It's not yet.
Yeah, I think Lando has speed, doesn't he? Like he's been embedded at McLaren for such a long time that the foibles of that car are kind of second nature to him. He can drive around issues even if it's not completely what he likes, but he can be fast in that car, faster than Oscar, um, the majority of the time. But it's the yeah, I agree with you. He is still learning. McLaren are still learning. I come back to the point that I made before that you're never guaranteed success at any point
Yeah. I
in
mean,
this game. And the fact that they have a fast car now doesn't mean that they will still have a fast car next season. And yes, you could say this is all learning, but it's also, you could also call it missed opportunity.
oh yeah,
um
absolutely. I think it's both. You can't say one or the other. You're right. I mean, and look, they're now having to compete not just with Max, but possibly Lewis and George. and then maybe Charles and Carlos. And these are not like really their margin for error is next to none.
Yeah, it's
So they
small,
do
isn't
have
it?
to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, but those are the margins that you're playing with. And you look back at instances, I mean, genuinely look back at Austria, and you know, I have to say, my view on the whole thing has sort of evolved to the point where you kind of have to think, should Lando have done something differently? You know, in that final move where he was just belligerent and stayed on the outside line, and
Yeah, but that's
um,
learning, isn't it?
correct. But what if he doesn't get another opportunity? And where I see calm calculation on one side of the garage, I see red hot emotion on the other side.
Yeah.
Um, and you need an amalgamation of both of those to be able to come
I
out on
think
top.
he'll
And
get there.
I only see two drivers really on the grid that combine both of those all of the time. That's Max and Lewis. You know, but they're the ones that have championship level experience. So yes, it's a virtuous circle for them and a vicious circle for Lando. At some point that has to end, but it has to happen soon. Otherwise, they're
Well,
gonna
look,
lose
I
a
mean,
lot of missed opportunities here.
he would have run away with the Silverstone win had it not been for McLaren. And maybe our perspective is slightly different, right? Because you do get that redemption right after Austria, but it wasn't to be, and the team is to blame for it. But I'm not that down on him. I think again the stakes are so different for a young. I know he's not a rookie anymore, but for Piastri, the stakes are not as high as they are for Lando. Lando's been with the team forever. He's raced over, I don't know, like 100,
But
races.
do you see Oscar like acting differently in the heat of a battle? I don't. I feel
No,
like
but
this is
but
just his
but
level,
I don't know. I'm a little
his
reluctant to
temperament anyway. Like not,
psychoanalyze. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. That might just be his thing too. But look, I mean, we've compared him to a Jensen Button-esque kind of driver, right? So he's going to have
which
some
I
ups
still
too.
think is doing him a
Yeah,
disservice,
it
by
is.
the
It
way.
is. But he hasn't been, to be fair, he hasn't been in the heat of a battle like Lando has been too. So let's see. Let's see how he does too when it's his turn, right? He has, for no fault of his own, by the way, he has not had the opportunity to go wheel to wheel with Max, and he could have very well inherited that Austria win. I mean, that's got to be the one that's yeah, because it was no fault of his own, really. Yeah, but that's
Well,
why I
as
do
you say,
stuff.
the bad luck has to end at some point, and when it does, I am here for it. I
Yeah.
definitely want to see what the man is made
I
of.
do want to get
Well,
into Zach Brown for a little bit because there's been a lot of chatter from him, man. There's just
yeah,
way too much. Like he has now become the Toto Wolf of going after Christian Horner. And I get it. I get what he's trying to do. I think he's trying to destabilize the team. But good God, you're coming off a week where you lost the race for not one but two cars. Like just keep a lid on it, man. Like just for a second, like at least start consistently beating Red Bull before you start opening your mouth and going haywire with everything. I mean, the amount of nonsense that's out there too with him is it's just crazy, man. It's just crazy. I don't know about you, but it's
yeah,
just
he's not very well practiced at it. That's the problem, isn't it? Like it's clear he hasn't had to do this before. It's always been internal. How do we improve? Now now they're in a position to win races.
well,
Well, okay, we're gonna have to look outside our little pen as well. And you can tell he hasn't done it before.
but what is he doing saying, "Oh, we would coach our drivers on the integrity of the rules and but Christian Horner and Red Bull aren't." No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. If you had, come on, like don't be ridiculous. Like, and what you saying that is all of a sudden going to change Christian Horner's heart and change of mind now that Zach has said he
But
did.
he's not doing that for
So I mean, what is
for
that?
Christian
Like,
Horner's benefit, is he?
it's not gonna make a difference to Max. He's been in way worse media battles too, like if you want to call that too. Like it doesn't matter. And I loved his response too. It's like Zach Brown, who? Like, come on, like I'm a big fan of Zach Brown, right? And I love what he's done with the team. I mean, we give Fred Vasseur a lot of credit. We don't often give Zach and Andrea Stella and really the whole group for making it this far this quickly. We didn't anticipate them being here for at least another year, if not longer. So there's credit to be given there, but good God, man, just keep a lid on it. Like, why do you have to say stuff like that? Why do you have to say stuff like that? Like, wait till your two drivers start to battle each other. Let's see how it works out. Like, seriously.
Ah, man. I agree. I think he's got a bit to learn from his peers at the front end of the grid
And then he turns
on
around
how
and
to
goes
do
to
F1
Red Bull to see if
politics.
they can get their engines. It's like, what are you doing, man? Like, what's going on? Like, what's going? Oh man, he's not making any friends, is he?
Well, I guess that's his game, though, isn't it? Right. Let's talk about your team for the last 5 or 6 minutes.
Ah,
Um,
I have to
Talk to me. So actually let me scene set a little bit. We Because I wanted to get your views on a lot of what we said. I had a chance to download a little bit this week, and I said that I was a bit disappointed in how Ferrari are letting Adrian Newey slip through their fingers. Specifically, Benedetto Vigna, the CEO of Ferrari, coming out and saying that, and this is reported by Andrew Benson. This is not a direct quote. That the salary that Adrian Newey demands is too high for Ferrari. But what I found even more interesting was him saying that he would uproot the system, that he would um, cause major problems within, or he would try and change the entire system and have too much control within Ferrari. And I I thought that showed a lack of understanding about how you get success in Formula One. But I did want to know, as a red-blooded, turquoise-wearing F1 fan, what did you what did you think?
Well, we should call this the broken Tifosi corner. Like that's what we should do. We'll get some imaging for it eventually. But listen, I'm not that mad. Look, first of all, I believe that things are said in the media for a specific reason. Like those quotes are put out there because this is part of the negotiating that's happening. I firmly believe that at the end of the day, Adrian Newey is either going to be with Ferrari or he's going to retire. And I doesn't sound like he wants to retire. I don't know why he'd want to go anywhere else. Like, what does Aston Martin look like? Like, what does that even mean for a guy like him who's accomplished so much? Like, the lure of working at Ferrari, the lure of working with Lewis Hamilton, something that he has been public about, I think in the end will matter more than money. I don't think Adrian Newey wants a whole lot more money than what Ferrari can offer him. I think that they're just playing. His agent, Mr. Jordan, is playing the negotiating game. Like this is the kind of stuff that happens. He hasn't signed with Aston or Williams, has he? Like he visited Aston, but okay, sure, go ahead. So I'm not mad at it, right? I'm not mad about that. I do think that Ferrari need to take a close look. And if what they're putting out in the press, both Benedetto and Fred Vasseur has also kind of echoed some of the same things, is they don't need to look too far than their friend, right? Fred's friend Toto, and look at the way they've set up. Like they've done a lot of winning without Newey too. So it's as much credit as we rightly give to Adrian Newey, it's not the end all and be all. So if they are firmly trying to develop a structure, an organizational structure that does become high functioning, that does become effective, that does become impactful, that can overcome mistakes, and we'll see an example of that here in the next couple of days. I'm not totally mad about that. I do think ultimately Adrian will join Ferrari. I think this is just the PR game that's being played out.
Oh, that's a big call. Um, Firstly, to the Mercedes thing, sure they didn't have Adrian Newey, but they did have James Allison. The two
Sure.
seasons they didn't have James Allison, they floundered. And it's similar at Red Bull. The one season where Adrian Newey really didn't take any interest in the Formula One car and was off doing America's Cup or whatever, the RB13, back in 2018, I think it was. Or was it 2017? Maybe it was 2017. The RB13, it was the car that basically, it was 2017 because they had a rule set change. Adrian Newey decided to take a day off, and they came up with a car that was then playing catch up for the rest of the aero rule set until they changed it in 2022. So I get where you're coming from, but what Ferrari have been missing, I think, for a long period of time, is a figurehead technical person, right? It's something that they haven't had. They Sure, you're going to slap me with Mattia Binotto as you always do.
How did that work out, huh?
Yeah, but he was never like Adrian Newey, Ross Brawn level sort of technical head, was he? Um, But when you have somebody like James Allison, they can make a difference. When you have somebody like Adrian Newey, they can make a difference. You're seeing the results on track. So for Vigna to come out and say that I'm scared that he is going to upset the apple cart, that tells me that he doesn't understand, or that there's so much ego in there that no, we have to be seen. I have to be seen as the person that's bringing success to
Yeah.
Ferrari, not some technical head.
Well, duh.
Come
Like,
on.
what did you expect? This is Ferrari, man. Like that, like I said, don't your rules, your being reasonable. None of that applies, man. But this is Ferrari.
But
That's
the one time they were reasonable, Amar, they won championships. When they did do the
I
thing that
know.
you're
I mean,
supposed to
we
do,
stumble
they
upon
were
it, but yeah,
dominant.
I mean, I look. A dead clock is right twice in a day, right? They're gonna get it right eventually. It's gonna happen. It's gonna. I'm not saying that we're the geniuses as far as or benchmarks for like this is how it's supposed to be done, but I still think we can be competitive. Look, candidly, they've had a fairly competitive car, right? If you remove the last two, three races, so there is something to be said about. I'm sure Plan A is Adrian Newey, right? But if he's going to play hardball and if it's not going to work out, it's not about the money. You know that, Chess. I mean, they've given Lewis Hamilton how much money? It's not about the money. It
Agreed.
is about establishing a hierarchy. And if that's how
Yeah.
it's going to be,
Yeah.
that's how it's going to be. Like you can't tell them to fundamentally change who they are. Like this stuff is never going to happen, right? So, yeah.
Then you're fundamentally not going to win
Well,
races and
I don't know.
championships.
I mean, I
I mean,
don't know that that necessarily means that. Like that's a big leap to take. I think you can be competitive.
mate, like your current chassis and aero guy has basically gone, I've had enough of everyone talking about Adrian Newey, like I'm not even here. I'm gonna head off somewhere else then. See you
Yeah, but
later.
I mean, okay, but what were you gonna? I mean, so okay, fair enough. Like, I mean, okay, what does that say about him though?
Agreed. There's too much ego. There's so much ego
So,
there.
so maybe Adrian Newey is not a good fit culturally. I mean, yeah, I guess you could argue that too, right? And I genuinely do not believe it's about money, and I genuinely do not believe it's about upsetting the apple cart.
No.
I think it's
Uh,
genuinely about, yeah, I think it's genuinely about establishing. I think that they feel that they can have a James Allison too. They don't need an Adrian Newey. Like, of course, I don't know
but
if they're
where
gonna find one.
where is that
I'm not saying to
guy
find one. Yeah.
or girl? Where are they? I've
What is
seen no
Lloyd?
evidence for that person.
Does
In
Lloyd
fact,
start off
the
getting
guy
to
with
that eventually? No.
really, but was Loic the technical director at Mercedes? No, he was head
No,
of
he
chassis
wasn't, but
performance.
I mean, everyone has a first time now. So it's not like look again. Like I said, Plan A is Adrian Newey, but they're gonna play this thing out in the media. There is a very good reason why that quote was put out there, or that story was put out there with his name behind it. This is classic PR. So I'm not gonna believe it until I see. I mean, go sign with Aston Martin. Like go help Lawrence Stroll build. Really, that's what you want to do? Williams, maybe I can see that, but I mean, good God, like you're gonna want to go from Red Bull to Williams? No. McLaren, what is that gonna look like over there? Like, what does Stella think? What does
He
every?
could he could make a he could make a big difference at McLaren. I'm not going
Okay,
to lie.
fine,
Like
fair
they've got
enough.
a structure that I think would accept it.
Fair enough. But do you think they
Um,
would accept that that's not troubling the apple cart there, like bringing Newey in, where his proteges have been working there now? Like,
but this is it. This is the whole point, right? Is that they're yeah. Anyway, like my problem with the whole thing is that line where he says he's going to upset the apple cart. That who do you have there that is driving you forward at the moment? I don't see anyone.
yeah, I think he wants Newey to be an advisory role and one where
Fine.
yeah, and I think that this is being let out through the media for a specific reason, right? Like that's what I'm saying. Like there's a good reason why that's been because they could have talked about this privately, right? They didn't need the rest of us to know this, right?
Yeah.
And so
And
I'm with you, but I'm not as upset about that, especially if they fix the car right now and they can really be competitive, then who knows? Look, as long as Red Bull doesn't have him and no one else does, yeah, why not?
well, let's see. Yeah, but I mean, I definitely agree with that. If Adrian Newey is not around, we definitely have some close fighting. Um, and that's the biggest compliment I can give to Adrian Newey.
There
And
you
on
go.
that note, I think we should probably call this a day. We will see you guys over the weekend. Have a little chat after qualifying, and we'll definitely debrief again after the race. As usual, if you like what we're doing, please drop us a like. Please subscribe. Um, drop us a comment. We read all of them. We reply to as many as we possibly can. It's been great to have Amar back chatting about Ferrari. And we'll have more of that to come. See you guys in the next one.
Later.